Yo, what is up guys, it's Pedro here. In today's video, I'll be going over the top 5 needs for the Washington Commanders this offseason. So we'll be talking about the draft, also free agency, things the Washington Commanders could do to fill these holes. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well. All those things really do help out a ton. Trying to hit 15K subscribers. We're a couple hundred away. Please help me get there. So let's get right into it. So I put this tweet out there yesterday on Twitter. Go ahead and follow my Twitter. Link is in the description, but it's just Pedro Schmidt. But basically, I went over the top 5 needs for the Commanders. I feel like it was a pretty good list. You could switch things around. I think D-end is one of the biggest needs, and I think that, an edge setting defensive end, one, we don't need two, just get one really good guy. So that's probably something you want to do in the draft because, early in the draft, a lot of the best edge rushers in the league are first round picks. There's positions like running back, receiver, even, other positions, guard, that you can get guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, even 6th and 7th rounds. But DN, it's hard to get an elite guy later in the draft. So that's why I kind of put it number 1, just because it is a big position need. And it's a premium position. Also, with Dante Fowler being a free agent, and Clelin Ferrell, I believe, you don't have someone opposite Dorrance Armstrong. And Dorrance Armstrong, I think, is solid. I don't think he's bad. I think he can be a starting edge rusher for you, and you're fine. But I think you need to add another guy, and that could be something they do in the draft. We'll look over here, just some edge rushers available in free agency. Khalil Mack, he would be a perfect 1-year deal type of guy. You sign him to a 1-year deal, whatever, he's going to want a decent amount, whatever, that's fine. Give him that 1-year deal. And then you go ahead, maybe you can still draft an edge rusher in the first round, and then you have a 3-man rotation right there. You have a, Dorrance Armstrong, Khalil Mack, and whoever that first round pick is, maybe another guy as well. It's a good little rotation. Teams have done it in the past. In the first year, the guy isn't necessarily starting. Like Nolan Smith, he wasn't starting his first year, and he's done a lot better. He's had a good season this past year, and in the playoffs has been killing it. Same thing with I'm trying to think someone else, but whatever. Besides Will McDonald from the Jets, I believe they did the same thing with him. There's other guys as well that they've done it in the past with some other options. A younger option would be not Chase Young, even though the name fits the word there, Chase or young player, but no. Josh Sweat, maybe he's an option. Other guys, I don't know. I don't know who else Commanders could go after. Hassan Reddick, maybe. You see the names right there. I think the best option is the draft and maybe sign a boomer bust type of guy. Like, I'm not saying to re-sign Clelin Ferrell, but a Clelin Ferrell type player where, maybe he has some talent. Let's see what he can do. But I wouldn't mind Khalil Mack as well. And then obviously you have draft, guys available in the draft. Tackle's another option, as a need for the Commanders. I put it up there because it's a premium position and you have a franchise quarterback. You know that. Let's protect this guy. Let's make sure that he's not taking these weird hits like he was in that Falcons game, or I think it was the Falcons game where he took that weird hit early on in the game. So that's personally for me is up there. And you have Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley at tackle right now. I think you replace one of them. Whether it's you want to keep Coleman at left tackle, you know what? That's fine. Keep him at left tackle, and then you maybe replace Wiley or move him inside. Or you keep Wiley at right tackle for another year, and then you move Coleman inside, which I think he can play inside at an elite level. I'm also fine with him staying at, a left tackle. The options right here aren't very good. Ronnie Stanley, but he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He has some injuries. You got Morgan Moses there, Jedrick Wills, who was a former first-round pick. The options aren't great here. In free agency, you got Trent Scott, who's a free agent. I think they'll probably re-sign him, but not a lot of really good options here. So might be a first-round type of thing that they do. You got Cody Ford there, who I think is a solid option as well. I'm trying to think any other guys that, I think Cody Ford, Jedrick Wills, has been up and down in his career. You got Tyron Smith there, who's very old. Ronnie Stanley, Cam Robinson. I wouldn't pay a premium price in free agency for one of these guys. I think you build through the draft. So if they want to stick with Coleman and Wiley, that's fine. And maybe I wouldn't mind bringing in, or I think they should bring in another tackle in free agency, whether that's bringing Lucas back and maybe some other guys. I don't know, but just something to watch out for. And then also it could be something that they look for on day 2 of the draft. The next one, and maybe not in terms of premium position, but running back is, I think, high up there on the list. I was not impressed this year with Brian Robinson. I think the view around the NFL is higher on Robinson than Commanders fans. I think Robinson's a good, number 2. I don't think he's a 1 in this league. I really don't. Maybe he can be the David Montgomery to whoever we get. Just like, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in Detroit. Maybe we can get a Jahmyr Gibbs type player. That would be amazing. But there's a lot of options in this running back class. You got, obviously, Genty, who's a stud, probably not going to be there when we pick. You got Sampson, you got Scadaboo, you got Hampton, a lot of, different options. The Syracuse running back, you got Judkins, you got Henderson from Ohio State. And then, got Virginia Tech's own Bashal Tutin, who I think is a stud as well. I mean, there's so many options. Devin Neal, I'm just looking right now at that list right there that Johnny Wilson, shout out to him, has there. A lot of different options. Devin Neal from Kansas, who's a stud as well, dual threat back. So there's a lot of options. I think this position you address in the draft for sure, and then you can have a running back core of Robinson, Eckler, who's under contract for another year, and then whoever you pick up in the draft. There are some running backs available in free agency that, okay, maybe if they don't want to go after someone in the draft, they can go after someone else. Like Aaron Jones, he is injury prone, would be an option. He's a little bit older, would be a 1-year deal, but he's a stud. Maybe they like a Javonte Williams type of player. J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year deal wouldn't be bad as well. I'm trying to think. Kareem Hunt's probably going to stay there. Jeremy McNichols is a free agent. But you see the options there that the Commanders could go after. But I think the draft is the best option that they could go after. They have a 5th-round pick, 3 7th-round picks. I believe they have a 5th-round pick. And, they made a bunch of trades that move the draft capital around. But I wouldn't mind a day 2 pick on a running back. 3rd-round pick on a... Yeah, 3rd-round pick on a running back, would not mind that at all. One of these, day 2 guys that ends up, being a stud and probably can be a day 1 starter for the Washington Commanders, or, maybe he starts out being like a 50-50 split between him and Robinson, but then eventually it gets to, at the end of the season, he's the number 1 back, and I trust Adam Peters to, be able to find a running back. Even though in San Francisco, they've always had, okay running backs, but they've drafted a lot. They drafted Mason. They drafted the LSU guy a few years ago. I forgot his name. They drafted Guerrero. Not a lot of, they've been okay, but they haven't found, a stud. I guess Mitchell, he was good, but, no studs in the late rounds. But obviously, when you have Christian McCaffrey out there, you can't really, they don't have a huge opportunity to show what they can do. But yeah, running back's definitely a position of need. Wide receiver 2, don't have to talk about it much. I mean, the only receiver on our roster, there's 2 receivers that are under contract. That's Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. They need to go after a receiver. Maybe they want T. Higgins. I would probably pass on T. Higgins personally. He's a good receiver, but you're going to be paying him a lot of money. But he is young, so I wouldn't mind it if they did it. You got Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, a lot of people have been saying. I think this could be a situation where you go after a Darius Slayton type of guy, DJ Chark, Demarcus Robinson, a good, solid veteran that's, better than what we have on the roster right now. Those guys, Darius Slayton, I know maybe a lot of Commanders fans aren't huge fans of him because he's been playing with the Giants, but he's solid. He would be a low tier 2 in my opinion. And that's better than anything we have right now. I don't think Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, Zacchaeus, Crowder, any of those guys are 2s in the league. 3s at best. So, I mean, maybe De'Ami Brown can develop into a 2, but I mean, it's been a minute. He's been in the league for a minute. So that's something I think the Commanders should also consider is a guy like Darius Slayton, and then drafting someone, in this year's draft that you think can, develop into a guy. Tez Johnson from Oregon, I think he's a stud. Someone like that, there's options out there. There's options out there for sure. And then we'll wrap it up here with the last one, cornerback. I think you could argue cornerback's higher. I personally still think that you got to give Lattimore a year, see what he does, and then you got Sanders still as a stud, and then you can re-sign Noah Igbenogany, who I think would be willing to come back. He has a role here. He likes the Dallas, connection with Quinn and Joe Witt. So I think the cornerback room isn't awful, but you could always add another elite cornerback. So something to watch out for too, or even just a solid vet that they add into the room to deepen that cornerback room a little bit, so that, okay, hopefully it doesn't happen, knock on wood, but if, Lattimore gets hurt, or Sanders still, or, Noah Igbenogany gets hurt, you have a better replacement instead of a guy like Michael Davis, Charchavius Ward, he's available. You got Carlton Davis, Byron Murphy, Jeff Okuda, Sewell Douglas, Gilmore. There's a lot of options out there. Not a lot of elite options, but you can get a, Asante Samuel from the Chargers. He gets a lot of picks. There's options out there. If you want to get a, veteran type of player that can come in there and compete for one of the spots, I don't think that would be a bad idea as well. And then obviously, there's always the draft as well. If you stayed until the end of the video, comment down below your top 3 positions of need for the Washington Commanders. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.